You've calculated your sample size. You know exactly the number of people that you are going to need to collect your data. But before that, you actually need to build that too. Now, at this point, most students do one of two things. The first one is they either go back to previous projects and copy their questionnaire without understanding it, or they write questions off the top of their head. And by the time you realize, it will be too late to go back to collect data, because by then others are in chapter 4, chapter 5, about to graduate, while you are still stuck with your supervisor. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to design a questionnaire, the part of questionnaire, and the kind of questions you are supposed to include in your questionnaire, and also the most common mistakes that you are supposed to avoid. Now, the first thing you need to do is to understand what your questionnaire must do. And if you're still wondering what a questionnaire is, it is simply a set of questions that you ask people who you intend to include in your study, and that will give you your data and will enable you to move to chapter 4, to proceed to chapter 4. Now, before you open a document and start typing questions, I want you to bring out your chapter 1 and look at your specific objectives, because that is what is going to guide us when we are building our questionnaire. So every section of your questionnaire must map directly to your specific objective. Then a section of your questionnaire must match directly to the knowledge of nurses. Another section must match directly to the attitude of nurses. And then if you have more than 2 objectives, the third section of your questionnaire must map directly to that objective as well. Depending on how many objectives you have, it must match. Now, I want you to keep something in mind. Your questionnaire is going to have an additional section or an additional part, and I'm going to explain that in a bit. So what I'm trying to say here is, if your specific objective is 4, your questionnaire is going to have 5 sections. And then if your specific objective is 3, your questionnaire is going to have 4 sections. If your specific objective is 2, then your questionnaire is going to have 3 sections. That's what I'm trying to say. Automatically, you are going to have 1 more additional section in your questionnaire. Now, the major reason why we map our questionnaire section to our specific objective is because it tells us how many sections of questionnaire we are going to need and how many questions each objective is going to carry, or each section is going to carry. And it also helps to differentiate between questions that has to do with attitude and questions that has to do with knowledge, so that you don't mix everything up together. Now, let's talk about the standard section of questionnaire. Now, the first one is the social demographic section. Now, remember, I told you that you're going to have additional section. So this is it. The social demographic section is not part of your objective, but it is almost always present in every research project, in every study. We collect social demographic data. The reason is because you want to get to know your participants beyond what you are studying. And also you can use this data in your data analysis to compare variables. Now, some of the questions that you ask in this section include their age, their gender, their religion, their tribe, their years of work experience, and the rest. Now, the number of questions or the type of questions you ask in this social demographic section depends on what you are studying. For example, if I'm studying the knowledge of nurses and their attitude towards clinical nursing research, the only thing I will want to ask nurses in this section is their age, their gender, their degree, maybe whether it's a diploma or they have MSc or a PhD, and I would like to ask them their year of clinical experience. Now, this is because maybe at the end of the day, I want to try to compare and see whether nurses who have been in practice for 30 years or for 20 years have good knowledge and positive attitude towards research compared to nurses who are just coming into practice. Now, that's another reason why we collect this social demographic data. And the same thing with degree. Maybe nurses who have MSc and PhDs might have a good understanding of clinical nursing research compared to nurses who have just diploma or who have bachelor's degree. So if I'm studying something that has to do with a community, I might want to ask them their tribe, their sources of income, something that has to do with what I'm studying, because you don't want to collect data that is not relevant for your general objective. Because why would I be studying clinical nursing research and then I'll be asking nurses their religion or their tribe? It doesn't really have much. Tribe doesn't really have anything, or religion doesn't really have anything to do with their knowledge of clinical nursing research, because they are in a hospital, we are in a professional ground. So you need to choose wisely. What you ask your respondent in your social demographic data, don't make your data bulky for no reason. It's going to be a lot of work for you. So focus on the things that matters. Now let's move to the second section of your questionnaire, which is, let's say, to assess the knowledge of nurses towards clinical nursing research. Now for this section, all my questions are going to be knowledge questions. And these questions, we can use maybe multiple choice question or true or false, works best. After everything, you can choose to score. Maybe you can say people that answered correctly will score 1, people that answered wrong will score 0. And then when you analyze your data, you're going to categorize these respondents as having good, fair, or poor knowledge, depending on your cutoff mark. Now, there are different cutoff marks. There are different theories for categorizing whether a respondent has good, fair, or poor knowledge. This will be another discussion for another video because it has to do with your data analysis. Another thing to also note is that your knowledge question should be accurate. It should not be debatable. Like someone should not read your question and be thinking, this looks like the answer. This looks like the answer. No, it doesn't work that way. The answer has to be clear so that if your respondents don't know, you know that they don't know. Now, let's move to the next section, which is our attitude. Because remember, we are studying the knowledge and attitude of nurses towards clinical nursing research. So the next one is our attitude because we've done our knowledge. So for this section, mostly we use Likert scale to rate the respondent's attitude. So typically, some people do 1 to 5. That's the rating on a rate of 1 to 5, which has strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. Some people will just do 3. So depending on the one you want, or depending on the one that your supervisor approve, or the one that a typical study that is similar to yours in another setting use, you can just go for that. Also remember, when you want to write the Likert scale items, you have to make it simple and clear. Now, the reason why I'm saying item and not question is because we don't ask a question when we are assessing attitude. We don't ask question because we are asking them to rate. So we rather write statements than ask them questions. So an example is nursing research should be mandatory. This is a statement. But if I change it the other way around, should nursing research be mandatory? Now this is a question. Another thing you need to note is that you want to avoid double statements in one statement. Let me explain. For example, you want to avoid saying nursing research is important and should be mandatory. The reason is because someone might agree that, okay, nursing research is important but should not be mandatory. So if you should put those two together, you are not giving the person the choice to go with, yes, I know it is important, but it shouldn't be mandatory. You are not giving them the choice. So you want to try and put each statement in a different line because you don't want to force them into agreeing or disagreeing with what you've written. You want them to give you their honest response. And another thing I want to say in this place is I want to tell you to avoid using negative worded questions. The reason is because it is kind of hard when you come to analysis because if you are coding, you have to reverse those ones. I don't know if you understand, but I'll just try and explain. I know this is for analysis, but actually the mistake starts from here. I did this and I suffered for it. So what I mean by negatively worded question is instead of saying nursing research is important, I will say nursing research is not important. I don't know if you get it. The first one, nursing research is important, is a positively worded question. We are being positive. We are being optimistic that nursing research is important. So people who will agree will agree. People who will disagree will disagree. But in our assumption, because we haven't yet analyzed our data, we would assume that majority of respondents will agree that nursing research is important. Now, if we now flip the question, nursing research is not important, the majority of people are going to disagree. I don't know if you see what I'm trying to explain. The majority of people are going to disagree with this statement. So when you come to your analysis, you need to be careful of this kind of question, especially if there are negatively worded questions. So, but if you are an undergraduate, I would just advise you to avoid it because you want to do it fast. You want to be fast about what you're doing because undergraduate project really does not have a long time. Now, if you have another objective, you can go ahead and add another section, making it the fourth section of your questionnaire. So mostly it's going to be like practice question or maybe barrier question. And if it is a barrier question, let's say barrier that nurses face towards when conducting clinical nursing research. So you can leave it an open-ended question if the objective that you are trying to study allows that. If not, you can just make it a multiple choice question. Now, the next thing we are going to do in this video is to talk about the rule that separates a good questionnaire from noise. And the rule number 1 is 1 idea per question. For example, you don't want to be asking, do you wash your hand before and after patient contact? Okay, what if someone don't wash their hand before the contact and then washes their hand after the contact? You are forcing them to agree to those two things. Now, rule number 2 is to use plain language. You want to avoid using technical jargon. You want to avoid using specialist words, except if those words are something that your respondents are familiar with. They know it and they know the meaning. And even then, you can provide maybe simple explanation of it. Your questionnaire should not confuse your respondents. Rule number 3 is to avoid leading question. Now, a leading question pushes the respondents towards a particular answer. An example of leading question is, don't you agree that nursing research is important? Instead, ask, is nursing research important? About saying, don't you agree that you are pushing them to agree with you that nursing research is important, which is not allowed in a questionnaire because your data could be biased. Rule number 4 is to make response options exhaustive and mutually exclusive. Now, when I say exhaustive, I mean adding a section that has others. Like maybe if you're asking, what is your tribe? You now put Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba or any other tribe. Then you can just add other so that people who are not Hausa, Igbo, or Yoruba can just simply write down their own tribe. You don't want to forcefully make them to fall into a category that they are not among. Now, when I say mutually exclusive, I'm talking specifically on social demographic data, especially when you're asking something that has to do with numbers that you are ranging. For example, if I'm asking years of clinical experience, so I'm going to put 0 to 10, and then I'm going to put 10 to 20. Then 20 to 30. This is actually wrong because it is not mutually exclusive. Instead, you want to write 0 to 9, then 10 to 19, then 20 to 29, then 30 to 39, like that. You don't want to be repeating numbers because if you do that, some people are going to be confused because they won't know which category they fall into. Because, okay, you have 0 to 10 and then you have 10 to 20. Which category do I fall into? Rule number 5 is to keep your questionnaire as short as possible because if your questionnaire is too long, it can create fatigue and it can lead to incomplete responses. So every question that you are including in your questionnaire must earn its place. If it has nothing to do with your objective or what you're trying to study, you have to remove it. Now, rule number 6 is to pilot test your questionnaire. Now, before you deploy your questionnaire to your respondents, you need to give those questionnaire to a different people in another setting who are similar to the population that you want to study. Let them answer the question and ask them if any question was confusing, if any question was difficult, if there's anything that you don't understand, so you can revise that question based on their feedback. So if I'm studying nurses in Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria Teaching Hospital, I might want to ask nurses in maybe AKTH to answer my questionnaire, then I can revise it because those nurses are not part of my study population. Next thing we are going to talk about in this video is what supervisors flag when you submit your questionnaire. Now, the first one is copying a questionnaire from a different study without citing the source. You need to cite. If you copy a questionnaire from a study that is similar to yours, whether you modify it or you copy directly word to word, you have to mention the source. You have to write the author's name in the reference. Now, yes, it's totally okay to copy a questionnaire from a similar study like yours. For example, if I'm studying nurses knowledge and attitude in Ahmadu Bello University's area, and a similar study has been conducted in Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, of course, I can use their questionnaire because we are studying the same thing. I can copy it, I can change anything I want to change, or I can leave it just as it is. I just have to credit the authors. I just have to mention that I copy it or I copy it and modify. That's all you have to do. The only thing we don't want you to be doing is to be copying a questionnaire that you don't understand, a questionnaire that has nothing to do with your research study. Next one is using a tool that has been validated in a different context. Now, this is what I'm trying to say. Even though the tool has been validated, but does it have anything to do with the people that you are studying? Now, an example of this is you cannot just go and copy a questionnaire that was validated in the United Kingdom for British nurses. It may contain some items that are not contextually relevant to Nigerian nurses. If you are using any tool that was validated out there, you need to modify it if there is a need and document any modification that you made. Now, the next one is mismatched questions and objectives. Now, this is when you write section B, knowledge section, and then the questions under the section are clearly asking them about their attitude, not knowledge. Now, this happens when you give to the questionnaire before finalizing your objective. So you need to be careful of the question. Question for knowledge should be under knowledge. Questions for attitude should be under attitude section. Now allow me to walk you through how to build a questionnaire from scratch. And for this, I'll be using a screen recording. I'm going to put my screen so that you can see it. Now the first thing you want to do is to go to Google. Just type forms.google.com and hit enter. And you can also do this using your phone. It doesn't have to be using a PC. So you're going to see this interface, an interface like this. Then all you have to do is to click on start a new form. Now you can see questions, response, and settings. Now, if you want to set your question, it has to be on the question. The setting, you can go there and tweak in some things that you want. For the responses, this is where your responses appear when someone has answered your questionnaire. Now, the first thing you need to do is to add a title. Your questionnaire must have a title. So you can see my own is Questionnaire on Assessment of Knowledge and Attitude of Nurses Towards Clinical Nursing Research. And you scroll down a bit and add a formal description. Now, this is where you include your name. This is where you address your respondent. For example, let me read a little bit of what is there. This is where you write, dear respondent, I am a 500 level student. If you are a postgraduate student, you just write, I'm a postgraduate student of the above the name institution, or you just add your institution, and you tell them the nature of your study and why you are conducting that study. And also don't forget to mention that you don't require their personal information. Anything that can identify them. You want to talk about confidentiality here. You want to tell them that everything they're telling you is confidential. Everything is going to be private. And also you can add that they are at liberty to refuse to continue with the study if they want. They can withdraw from the study if they don't want to be included anymore. And also you can put in your email address or your contact in case if anyone wants to contact you for more information about your study. You can all put it here. You will see untitled question. Now remember, you want to ask them for their consent before you proceed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to simply say, do you consent to participate in this study? And then I'm going to add a multiple choice. You can see it's here. It is already a multiple choice. So if anybody wants to consent, they're going to put yes. If they don't want, they can put no, or they can just disappear. Now you can see the form is already suggesting the options. So you can just directly click yes, click no. If you want to add, you can add option. You can add and the others. That's if you want to exhaust every response that there is. And you can also hit on this required. What it actually does is that if someone did not answer this question, a particular question, they can never move to the other section. So you can hit on this inverted triangle and click on whether you want to use drop down or check boxes. Actually, I'm very, very sorry if you're hearing some noises in the background. The thing is to come down to this last section that looks like 2 blocks and hit on it. This is where you get to add section to your questionnaire. Remember, we talk about the section like the social demographic section, the knowledge section, the attitude section. So you get to differentiate by adding section. So when you are there, you just hit on the title and write social demographic characteristics, and then you can provide a description for the section. It is optional, maybe like instruction. If you want to say maybe choose the correct answer, choose the most appropriate answer, or select all that apply, this is where you get to add your instruction. And the next thing you want to do is you just go and click on this plus sign. It's going to allow you to add questions. So you can see I'm just going to add their age. I'm going to leave it open. You can decide to do like a multiple choice, like maybe give like age range if you want. But if you want, you can just leave it a short answer, leave it open for them to just impute their age. Once you're done with this question, you still go back there and hit on add question. It's going to allow you to add the next question under your social demographic characteristics, which I added gender, and then I added option to be male or female. Now it's going to suggest for you. If it doesn't, you can just type it on your own, and I'm leaving this in multiple choice question as well. Now I proceed to add their educational qualification. So the first option, I'm going to write diploma. The second, I'm going to write degree, and then I'm going to hit add option and write MSc, and then the last one I'm going to use is PhD. So they can choose from all of these choices, and I'm making all the questions required in such a way that if you did not answer one question, you cannot go further. Now I'm done with my social demographic section, so I'm going to move in and hit on that 2 blocks at the end and write my knowledge section. So for the section, I'm going to put section B, knowledge section, and then if there's any description, you can add. If there's not, you can move on to adding your questions. These are just yes or no questions that I'm adding, so I'm going to leave it in multiple choice question. Once I'm done, I'll still go back down and hit on those 2 blocks and create another section, which is going to be my attitude section. So I'm going to put, for the title, I'm going to put attitude of nurses towards clinical nursing research. Make sure that your section title is clear for them to know what you are asking. And also here for the instruction, I'm going to write choose the most appropriate answer, and then I'm going to go ahead and add my questions. You can see immediately it's showing me some suggestions, so I can easily click on strongly agree, disagree, neutral, agree for it to give me the option, or you can do it yourself by still using multiple choice. You can still use multiple choice if you want, and then add it yourself, like agree, disagree, and all of that. Or you can hit on this and explore. You can use a rating scale like a star or anything, but you have to make sure that it's clear in your instruction, like 1 star represents strongly disagree, maybe 2 star represents disagree, 3 star represent neutral, 4-star represents agree, and then 5-star represents strongly agree. You have to make it clear in your instructions so that they can know what they are choosing. You can add more section if you have more objectives, but once you are done, you can come and click on this icon and hit on preview. The preview, this is basically how your respondents are going to see your questionnaire. If you answered, you consent to participate, you say yes, you can click on next, you enter your age, you enter your gender, and your educational qualification, all of that till you want to submit. That's how it's going to look for them. This is just for you to know that, okay, everything is right. If everything is not right, you can go back and modify anything that you want to modify before deploying your questionnaire. Everything looks right to you. You can just go and hit on publish, and then if you want to manage respondents, you can explore, but anyone with the link should be able to access your questionnaire. If you hit publish, it's going to provide you with your link, so you can shorten the link. You can click on this shorten URL, it's going to shorten it, and then you can copy your link and then share it with your broadcast message. Basically, your broadcast message is the thing that we put here in the description. Dear respondents, I am a 500 level student, blah 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 blah. That's your broadcast message. You want to post something, you don't just want to share a link to people without a prior introduction, without a short introduction of who you are and why you are conducting the study. You want to do that, and then you can attach the link at the end and say thank you for responding. So another thing you can do to your questionnaire is to customize it. So you can come to this theme, you can change the font size if you want, you can change the style if you want. Also, you can add like a picture if you want, just to customize it. You can change the colors, you can do everything that you want to do. Just play with it a few times and then create your questionnaire. But once people answer your questionnaire, you can come back here and go to respondents. You are going to see people who have responded to your questionnaire. You can see I have 0 responses. That means no one has responded. And then you can see sheets. So if you want to download a sheet, if you are using like Google Sheets, you can download it. And also you can hit on this 3 dots, this dot, and then you can see if you want to select the destination for your response, and also you can download the responses. This is going to be in Excel format where you can actually clean it and put it in your SPSS or any data analysis tool that you are using and begin your analysis. I didn't record that part, but actually you can go to the setting and set whether you want respondents to be able to answer your questionnaire once, or they can submit multiple responses, which I don't think it should be that way. One person should be able to answer your questionnaire once, so that they don't mess up your data. Now, if this video helps you, consider subscribing to this channel, because every week I post videos like this that help nursing students and health science students through their research. And these videos are practical and not just theoretical. Now that you have your questionnaire, the next critical step is how to validate your questionnaire, which is basically validity and reliability. And that will be the video that I will be posting next week. So it's going to be about whether your questionnaire is actually going to measure what you intend to measure, or it's not. So you need to watch this video before deploying your questionnaire. And if you have not yet calculated your sample size, you can learn how to do it if you don't know how to do it, because it is the step that you do before building your questionnaire. The video is right here, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.